everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of imPOWERED. Now, this looks a little bit different from your usual episode. No, we don't have two hosts, but I am very, very lucky today to have my co-host to interview. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to the other side of things.
Thanks. It's a little funny being on this side of the microphone, but it's going to be good. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. For those of you who still don't know Rebecca, you're either living under a rock or might be your first episode, which is okay. So welcome. Rebecca is an incredible woman. I've had the pleasure of knowing her for the past couple of months. She's an actor, teacher, model, activist, and founder of Orenda Cancer Community, and an incredible co-host of imPOWERED. Facing the diagnosis of breast cancer is one of the most feared experiences in our community. And today we want to kind of debunk that. We want to show you how living with a certain disease doesn't necessarily, it's not a label for you, essentially. I mean, you take that thing and turn it into a positive scenario, and you use that to kind of motivate you and drive you to achieve, kind of the unexpected and unachievable. So Rebecca here was diagnosed with a triple positive stage 1 invasive, I'm always going to get this wrong, ductal carcinoma.
Yeah.
And that was grade 3. Is that right?
That's right.
So that means that it was one of the more aggressive forms of breast cancer. But you're here and you're looking wonderful.
Thank
so
you.
That's awesome. So let's get started. Let's start by kind of talking about you and sort of when you were diagnosed and at what age.
Yeah. So I was 28 when I was diagnosed, and that's obviously quite young for breast cancer. And it was completely unexpected, but and I'll explain this later, but also a little bit expected, I guess, once I really sat down and thought about it. But yeah, so I was 28. I was in the middle of teaching summer school. I was just a couple of years out of teachers college and just really excited about my career and, living life. I was in I guess at that point we'd already been together for a couple of years, but 2 years, but a relatively new relationship, and was excited about that. And, just like all the things that a young woman should be doing and thinking about and being excited about. And yeah, I was just in the shower one day. I didn't ever do self-checks properly. I'd never really been shown how to do that. I mean, like the basics, I guess, but never really in depth. And because of my age too, I guess I felt like I didn't really need to do self-checks that regularly. We have this idea when we're young that we are invincible and that sickness and illness is something for the elderly or even someone who's in middle age or above. And so we just kind of convince ourselves that we don't really have to do these things to take care of ourselves, that it's okay if we slack on diet, it's okay if we don't exercise because we have our young age to fall back on. So so I was just I would just feel around a little bit, because the thing that I did hear often was know what your breasts feel like, so that when there's a change, you notice it.
Right.
So I did try to make myself familiar with what my own terrain felt like. And so I was just kind of feeling around in the shower one day, and I felt a lump. Was right on the outside. I almost questioned at first if it was even in my breast tissue, because it was like so far to the outside, almost like right under where my bra, like underwire would sit.
Okay.
But I'm one of those people who just kind of goes to the doctor for everything. I'm a little anxious when it comes to my health. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 11, so it's always been like on my radar.
Right.
And yeah, so I went to my family doctor, and she was like, we'll see. Let's just do an ultrasound. So we did that. It was they said it's kind of suspicious, but also not. We're not sure. Let's do a mammogram. So we did the mammogram, and the mammogram came back negative. And my doctor, for whatever reason, I guess she just had a gut feeling about it. She was like, you know what? Let's just do the biopsy anyway, because the doctor who looked at the first ultrasound suggested doing a biopsy. So let's just do that just in case. So we did that. And everyone was very nonchalant. Everyone was like, oh, it's mobile, meaning it moves around. Usually tumors don't move around very much. And they're like, you're young, you have very few risk factors. Like, don't worry about it. I think the guy who did my biopsy was like eating a snack as he came into the room. He was like, I saw your scan. I think you'll be fine, but we'll do it anyway. So it was nice because I was very relaxed waiting for my results. I wasn't that anxious about it. But then that also meant that I went to my appointment by myself when I got my results, because I was like, oh, it's fine. It'll be nothing.
Right.
Not a good idea. If you ever get a biopsy for any reason, always take somebody with you just in case. So yeah, that's what confirmed it. At that point, we didn't have pathology or anything. We didn't know triple positive, grade 3. We didn't know any of that. But yeah, after that, things moved really fast. I had surgery about 11 days later, and and then that started me on this crazy path.
Wow. Like, to think that like the person who took your biopsy came in eating a snack, it's almost kind of like it was like reassuring, and then you kind of get hit like right in the face.
Totally. My jaw literally dropped open.
Yeah,
it's like one of the only things I remember from that moment. I literally was like, my jaw is on the floor. Like, I had that thought. I was like, you look like a cartoon character. You know, they were just like, yeah, it was a crazy moment. It was a crazy moment.
Wow. So I don't know if this is like the teacher in you talking, but I know that you love to learn and like to educate yourself. And we've talked about this a little bit, how you're open to, you know, alternative medicine and kind of integrating that into a conventional path. So how did that kind of come about in your journey and in your treatment?
It happened very naturally, because for me, I am a lifelong serial learner. Like, I'm the person who like looks back on high school and is like, I would do it all over again. And like, I look back at my undergrad and be like, let's go again. I'll get another degree. That's cool. I have great fun. Like, when I started teachers college, it was about 3 years after I graduated. And I was just so happy. I was like, I missed this. I missed being in the classroom. And so yeah, I am a lifelong learner, and that definitely plays a part. My mom also has suffered from various chronic illnesses through her lifetime. Really, it's boiled down to food sensitivities and digestive issues. But she's always been very interested in alternative and natural care as well. And when we were kids, she, we had a regular family doctor as well, but, she would like take us to a chiropractor, take us to a naturopath, we had an integrative, holistic medical doctor at one point. So there was always, that was always just a part of my world. So I didn't ever, I didn't have a bias against it. There's a lot of people who do, they don't necessarily understand the ways that it works, or they're not interested in it, so they don't learn about it, which is totally fine. But for me, it's always just been a part of my world. And whenever I have a problem, big or small, my reaction is always, what can I do myself to help myself out? Because I've just, I don't know if it came from my mom or just my own life experiences up to that point. It's just been ingrained in me that there's always something additional that you can do.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a health issue or any other obstacle that's in your life, there's someone else out there who's gone through it. You can find their information. You can see what they did. You can get advice. You can find, your people. There's always something that you can learn and do yourself. So immediately, I think not that night, because your brain kind of is frozen. But within a few days, I started researching and reading. And I think it also, for me, I know that it helps calm my anxiety, because I can start being like, okay, this worked for that person and they did this, and look at all of these things I can try. Look how many other people have already done this. They've done it. If they did it, I can do it. So it just really helped give me a lot of hope, and it eased my anxiety. And it also gave me something to do, because I was instantly not working, and just had all day to think about surgery, and then chemo potentially, and then whatever else. I had no idea at that point what was going to be offered. So, so it kind of helped to distract me. It helped ease my anxiety, and it gave me a lot of hope. So I think it was something that I just kind of naturally fell into, because intuitively my brain or my body just knew that this is something that you need to get on top of yourself. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, like, even at school now, with what I'm studying, teachers and professors have started to integrate that with our learning as well, just
Yeah,
how to complement the two together.
totally.
So I think that's
Totally.
interesting to see that, like,
Hmm.
we're kind of changing
Yeah.
the way we go about things, especially in medicine.
Yeah. Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, but you also make a good point in terms of, like, other people who have also gone through something similar or the
Yeah.
same, like, it's worked for them. So I can
Totally.
kind of see, like, that viewpoint in terms of, like,
Yeah.
why you would do that. And I guess that's a good coping method too,
It
like, for
is.
people who are really, really anxious with the
Yeah.
diagnosis itself, or
Hmm.
if their family is really anxious, like, I
Yeah.
feel like that would be a really good skill for them to kind of
Totally.
use.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
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 No, so talking on the same, like, lines of fear,
Hmm.
obviously there that would have been a very scary, uncertain situation.
Hmm.
But what would you say, like, how did you come over your fears of treatment itself, or, like, the side effects that came with it?
Right. I don't know if there's anything you can really do to get. I mean, some people maybe. I think it has to do with personality. Some people are just like super determined and they're very confident, and some people take on that warrior mentality or that battle mentality, and that really helps them. It gives them, some anger,
Yeah.
which is always helpful to kind of motivate you through. For me, I again, like, just learning what to expect was helpful, and asking advice from other people, like even just like little tips and tricks to get through treatment and that kind of stuff. But I think just like empowering yourself with knowledge is really important, and I know it's hard when you're in that moment, and when you're
Right.
in that in the storm of it,
Mhm.
because there is so much going on and you don't have a lot of emotional or mental currency to spare. A lot of
Yeah,
it's
I'm
being
sure.
spent in other places. But if you have the energy to do it, or if you have somebody who is good at research, a friend or a family member who's good at it and they can do that for you, um, it's just really good to know what's coming. Because one of the hardest things about I did do some chemo, and the hardest part for me was that I was not well prepared for the emotional or the mental side effects. Like, we talked a lot about the physical. When I went to a chemo class, and they talk all about your when your hair might fall out, and the nausea and bone pain and neuropathy and like all of that goes with it. But no one ever talked to me about the mental and emotional impact of those chemicals going into your body. And it was crazy. Like, I felt crazy, and I felt like it was never going to end. I was like, I'm going to feel this way forever. And Jesse was like, no, you won't. It'll pass. It'll be fine. But it was just, that was really hard. It was, yeah. So I think if I had been better prepared, I was really prepared for the physical side effects, and I think I handled that well. Or I was still scared. I still remember sitting in the chair, and like, I had AC, which is nicknamed the Red Devil because it's bright red and it is the devil.
Oh,
It's awful. And I still remember like watching it go down the tube, and like the second it went into my arm, being like, okay, like it was just like, it felt like an end and a beginning. Like, I can't ever say now that I haven't had chemo.
yeah.
And so yeah, I was prepared for the physical, so I was a little less afraid. And they give you lots of good drugs, and if something doesn't work, they're so good about getting you in right away and changing things up. But yeah, the mental and emotional aspects. So I think if you really prepare yourself, if you can build that knowledge, just know what to expect, and know what your options are for helping those things. And I think also, if you're open to it, talking to a naturopath or an integrative doctor is really great, because there's a lot of things that they can do to mitigate those side effects, to lessen them and make sure they don't impact your life as much. And like, there's one woman who is at my naturopath clinic, and she had colon cancer, and she was telling me this one day. She was at her support group, and they were talking about like, oh, the mouth sores and hair falling out and nausea and all this stuff. And she was like, I didn't really experience that. No, I didn't really experience that either. No, I know some of my hair fell out, but I still have a lot of it. So it was just like a really good comparison to see like what can be done with the assistance of a naturopath and without. So if you are really scared about treatment, which is totally understandable, Yeah, build that knowledge base and then see if there's someone you can work with who can help you manage those side effects.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but do you think
Mhm.
that going to a naturopath kind of helped you in terms of the mental kind of symptoms that came along with it? Because I know that most people just focus on the physical aspects of things. Like I've seen
Yeah.
people go through treatment, and anytime that you would ask them, "Oh, what did the doctor say?" It was like, "Oh, the doctor said my hair is going to fall out. This is going to
Mhm.
happen. I'm going to have nausea."
Yeah.
But no one ever really said anything about, what kind of a mental toll it's going to take on
Right.
you. And I don't know if that's something that needs to be changed systematically, like in medical school,
Yeah.
just to talk a little bit more about just the person and kind of individualize that medicine
Yeah,
practice.
absolutely.
But I feel like hearing your story that like the naturopath helped or the alternative medicine did
Yeah.
complement that really well, just because that bridge still has to be connected between
Yes.
understanding the patient mentally and physically as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be really wonderful if that change happened. And I mean, my oncologist does, because I'm on a certain medication now that can give you some pretty intense mood swings. She does ask, how are you feeling mentally and emotionally? But I feel like it's more from the standpoint of like, do you need, like, do you need an antidepressant or do you need an anti-anxiety, or is there something else, some other medical intervention that needs to happen? Like, are you suicidal? Are you, like, she's kind of checking the boxes there. And yeah, so it would be really nice if that was sort of a standard part of the discussion, going into it. This is what might happen, this is what other people experience. And yeah, and the naturopath was great because we were, all of the cancer patients get their IVs on the same day. And so we were
Okay.
all in the same room, and we kind of called it the cancer club, and we were just, like, laughing and talking and complaining, and like, it was really great. We became very close. So that was very helpful mentally and emotionally, because yeah, you just have other people that are going through it with you.
Right.
And then of course my support group, if any of you watching, I love you. Yeah, they were amazing. They were all, I mean, yeah, you can't get through it without your people. You just can't.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, and I had a feeling I knew the answer. But for the past couple of months, like from what I've seen on, your cancer group on Facebook, as well as like from the blogs I've read about you, you like to think of cancer as almost like a team
I
sport.
do. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I don't even know when this occurred to me. It just kind of, I think I was discussing this with someone. They had asked me something similar, and I was like, you know what? It really, cancer really is a team sport. Like, you just can't. And it's a couple different facets. So one, you need a medical team that you really trust, and that is your medical oncologist, your radiation oncologist. If you are having radiation, your surgical, and then, because it was me, if you're taking an integrative approach, you have to find naturopaths that you trust and that you like. You have to find, if you can, find an integrative doctor as well, that you trust and that you like. And that's going to be a little bit different. Like, there's plenty of people that I've recommended. I had 2 naturopaths for a while now. I'm back down to 1, but because there was a separate treatment that I could only get done at this other clinic. So I've recommended both of them and my integrative medical doctor to a lot of people, and lots of people have gone. Some of them have loved them, some of them haven't. So like, that's just the way it is, right? Like, people click or people don't. So
Yeah.
you need to have medical people that you like and that you trust, because otherwise it's just, you're going to butt heads, and it's not going to be helpful. It's going to be more stressful, and that's not what you want when you're healing. So that's the one part of it. And then the other part is, like, find your people who are going through the same thing as you, or who have, I mean, I would say find some people who have gone through it already, so that they can tell you what to expect, and they can kind of calm your fears, or even just tell you what to expect, and to have like someone that you can look to say, like, they're done, they did it, I can do it too. Yeah. So I had a really wonderful friend of mine, Mary, who she had gone through it a couple years before. She was one of the I think she was maybe the first person that I called after I was diagnosed, because she's the only person that I knew who had breast cancer. And then yeah, my support group at Wellwood. If you're in the Hamilton area, go to Wellwood. It's amazing. If you're in the like Oakville, Burlington, Mississauga, GTA area, There's one in Oakville called Wellspring. They're amazing. It's just like full of free programs for cancer patients, like art therapy, support groups, exercise programs, yoga, meditation classes. Like there's just so much stuff and it's all free. And I would not have been able to get through it without the women in my support group. It's just, there's your friends and your family and your loved ones are amazing and also very important. That's another, there is just sort of like an automatic though that they're going to be on your team. But they can't really understand. They can sympathize, you know, like if they've gone through their own challenges and their own difficulties, but unless they've gone through cancer themselves, it's really, you can't really understand. And there's just some stuff that you can't necessarily talk about with them. You can really only talk about with people who have had those exact same feelings as you and aren't made. And I think maybe part of it is that at the support group, a lot of times, no one's trying to make you feel better. No one's trying to be like, it's okay, you know, you'll get through it. Sometimes you just need to be listened to and be like, yeah, that sucks. And I know exactly how you feel and it really sucks and I'm sorry. So that was extremely helpful. So yeah, your medical team, your people who have gone through it or are going through it at the same time. And then, yeah, your family support. I've heard some really terrible stories from some people about unsupportive family and friends. So if you have any of those people, if you have some people in your life who like take a step back when you get diagnosed instead of a step forward, a step up, they try not to take it personally. I had some friends who, you know, like I just didn't really hear from them for a while. And at first I was kind of upset about it, but then I realized, especially at a young age, it's freaking scary to have one of your friends diagnosed because we've built up this like shield of, I'm young, I'm healthy, it's totally fine. Like I don't have to worry for another 30 years. But then someone who's the same age as you, who grew up in the same area and, you know, has had a similar life experience, they get diagnosed and then kind of all that buffer that you've built up goes out the window.
Yeah.
So some people just don't know how to deal with that. So you just have to know that it's not you, it's them, it's their own fear, it's their own anxiety. So if you do have something, you know, someone, a relationship in your life that usually you think they're going to be on your team and then they're not, just give them time. Just give them time. When your hair grows back, then they might come around again because it's easier to, it's harsh, but it's true. Like the bald, losing your hair is just like a very visual reminder of what you're going through to you and to everybody else too. So it's hard to look at. It is. It's hard for some people to look at, which sucks, but it's the way it is. So try not to take it personally if you really want someone on your team and then they're not. I rambled a lot, but there you go.
So just like a follow-up question on that, I know I've seen people who've gone through the diagnosis and, you know, it's taken a really hard toll on their family. And I guess like when you're going through that yourself, you kind of feel guilty almost. And I don't know, like if it's like a certain, like if it's like a thing that women do or it's just a diagnosis thing in itself, just because, you know, breast cancer doesn't just happen to women. So was there ever a time where like you felt guilty for almost pinning that diagnosis on people who loved you and who were around you and who were kind of willing to support you, but there was still this thing where you're like, why do I have to take them through this journey? So I'm sure a lot of people also go through a similar phase. For them, what kind of coping methods and strategies would you recommend?
Yeah, so I definitely did feel a lot of guilt. I don't know if I've said it before while interviewing somebody else, but because I was by myself, I walked upstairs. I got home, walked upstairs, and I said, Jesse was sitting on the couch right here, and I said, I have breast cancer. And then the second thing I said was, I'm sorry that you love me, because I just felt so bad that he was going to have to go through this with me. And my mom too. I felt, because my mom is, for anyone who knows her, you will agree, she is probably the most wonderful, sweetest, kindest, caring woman that I know. And she's been through a lot in her life, and she's had to take care of a lot of the people in her life. My dad, when he was sick, and then her mom, And now her husband has some health issues, so she has to do a lot. Has had and us growing up, right? When my dad died, she had to raise us on her own from that point forward. So she's just done a lot of caretaking, and I felt awful that she was going to have to do it again for me. And whereas, like, we're getting to a point in life where, she's in her 70s, I should be the one who is taking care of her. So that was very, very difficult to deal with. But I think just recognizing that it's not your fault. It's nothing that you did. There are so many reasons why people get cancer. There are so many factors at play. It's not just because you maybe didn't eat as well as you should have, or you didn't exercise as much as you should have, or you had too much stress in your life. It's like all three of those things and then 5 others that you have no control over. So really, it's really, really, really not your fault. Even if you feel like there are some factors in there that you could have had control over, you were operating from the knowledge base that you had at that time, right? And you can't blame yourself for not being able to look into the future and be like, oh, if I don't start changing things now, in 5 years, I'm going to get cancer, right? There's no way to know that. So you equally may have not, right?
Yeah.
So I think just really reminding yourself that it's not your fault, and that honestly, no one is blaming you, and they shouldn't be blaming you. I have heard, unfortunately, from women of partners or friends or whatever, family members, making them feel like it's their fault. But again, that just comes back to their issue, not yours. It's not you. It's their fears and their anxieties, and they're rightfully upset that they're, like, we don't like to feel uncomfortable, upsetting emotions. We don't. So one of the ways that people deal with that is by deflecting, and they deflect it back onto the person that they perceive as making them feel this way. So sometimes that happens, but again, it's not you, it's them. That's their own issue. So it's hard. I mean, it's so much easier to say than to do. But just remind yourself, it's not my fault. It's really not. There's nothing that I could have done to prevent this because I didn't know it was coming, nor should I have known that it was coming. So I think, just really remind, and hopefully you have people on your team who will tell you the same thing, because it's easier to believe when someone else is telling us, especially the people we feel guilty about. So when Jessie, my mom, could tell me, like, don't feel bad. We are happy to be here. And so we wish we didn't have to, but we are happy to be here to support you. That really helps. So talk to the people that you're feeling guilty about, and share those feelings and share how you're feeling. And and hopefully they'll reassure you that you don't need to feel that way.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I mean, I can see that whole guilt trap thing. And it does happen as much as you don't want it to. But I guess that's a really good way to look at it. So we kind of touched on this before, just the physical aspects of it. Talking a little bit more about just femininity in itself, and quality of life, and unfortunately, like, we like to be perceived in a certain way in our society. And having a diagnosis like this, where your hair falls or you look weaker, it does take a toll on you. Was this something that you were fully aware of before you started treatment, or was it something that you kind of like learned as you went along, and did your coping mechanism kind of change?
So I think at first I just tried to, like, outwardly deny that it was happening. Like, I didn't want anybody to because so what I was most afraid of was that once everybody knew, because I was young, most of my friends have not had to go through something like this, and don't expect to for a really long time, and so they can't really relate. And what I was really afraid of was that after everyone knew, all they would see when they looked at me was a cancer patient. They were no longer going to see Rebecca and all of her amazing facets. They were just going to see cancer patient. And I think that's also why losing my hair was so difficult for me too. I really didn't think it was going to be. I've had my hair every length and color you can think of, and I was like, it's just hair. I've always felt like it's just hair. It'll be no problem. But it was really, really hard for me. And I think that's why, because up until that point, I could go outside, I could go to the store, I could do whatever, and like no one would know to look at me. But as soon as I lost my hair, and then I also was at, a lot of people gain weight when they go through treatment because of the steroids. It's actually, we think of the sort of like sickly, thin cancer patient, but often it's the opposite that happens, because you get some pretty heavy steroids to deal with the nausea. But for me, I actually did lose a lot of weight because I changed my diet drastically and was really trying to find the right balance. And then it was also just so much stress, I think, too.
Yeah.
So I did, and up until that point, I'd always been more kind of a curvy girl. I always had like an hourglass figure, and it was almost a part of my identity. And it had been reinforced, I won't get into why, but many times throughout my life, it had been reinforced to me that my physical appearance was the most important thing. That's why people liked me. That's why people dated me. That's why, I got the things, I had the opportunities that I did, which is not true, but subconsciously in my mind, that is what I believed at that time. And so I think losing that curviness that was sort of a part of my identity, that was really hard too. But what it forced me to do was re-examine the way that I was thinking about myself and actually start being nicer to myself and start really trying to replace those like negative cycles of thought about myself and my appearance and why people wanted to spend time with me. Tried to replace those cycles of thinking with you're amazing, you're a rock star, you're a superstar, like look at everything you're doing, like look what you're handling, look what you're getting through, like this is amazing. And like you're gonna be able to do so many amazing things after this, because and it worked. Like my confidence has gone through the roof. Like I have so much more self-confidence, and I'm so much more secure in myself now, both physically and also just like as a person on the inside. Like I love me now. And I think that really, really, and it's one of, which we may get to later, but it's one of the unexpected gifts of cancer for me, is that it's just completely made me fall in love with myself. Because I'm pretty freaking cool.
That
like,
is true.
So I think starting to view myself in that, starting to like unpack what the definition of femininity is, and how we view ourselves and other women and men. So starting to kind of deprogram that stuff. And then I had just wonderful proof that like, look, you don't, you don't look the same as you did physically before, but Jesse still loves you and your friends still want to spend time with you and people still think you're great. So like, you don't have to worry about that as much. And I did, the day I finally, I like to call it my old man comb over. I had like shaved this side of my head. It was actually about as long as this on this side. And I did that right before chemo. And then it all started coming out. But this like long part, there was still just like stragglies. And I would just kind of, like make it look like it was covering my whole head. And eventually I realized that I was wearing a headscarf or a hat all the time, not because I was upset or embarrassed about being bald, but because I hated the comb over. It looked like an old man. So I was like, one time I was just looking in the mirror. It was New Year's Eve, 2017 into 2018. And I was just like, just shave it. Just shave it off. Like, who cares? We were having like a big New Year's Eve party that night. And I was like, you don't want to walk around inside all night with a headscarf on.
Yeah.
Just shave it. So I did. I shaved it, and it was a very empowering moment. And then like all my friends came over for New Year's, and everyone was like, you look amazing. So I had like instant reinforcement that like I was still, you still look good. Like you still want to look good, of course, even if you can let go of some of the superficial stuff. But so that really helped too. Yeah, just having like really supportive friends and family. But yeah, reworking, I think really working to deprogram that thinking of like, I have to have long hair, I have to have, a full chest, I have to have wide hips, otherwise I'm not a woman. Trying to, and again, all of this is easier said than done, and it's taken me lots of years to make the progress that I have, and cancer sitting there pushing me really hard to do it. So it's not easy, and I don't expect it for anyone to be easy. If it is, great. But it takes some work and it takes some time. So just be patient with yourself and just try to rework those cycles of thought that you have.
Yeah, I think the positive reinforcements is really, really important. Just having like a constant reminder of, like it's going to be okay. Like it's not really the end of things in the grand scheme of things. There's actually, I'm going to throw this in here. There's actually this app that I downloaded. It's called Motivation.
Oh, cool.
That's what it's called. It's called Motivation. And every morning, it'll send me like a quote of some sort of positive affirmation. So I was like, this is great. Like, I can just read it. And sometimes just reading things kind of gets you in the flow of things. So anybody watching, like, if that's something that kind of drives you, like, I would highly recommend downloading that. I think it's available on both the App Store and Android. So that's great. But, moving on, we've rambled and we've talked and discussed about this so many times, but what two or three things would you tell to a person who, just learned yesterday that they had cancer?
So this is what I always say to everybody, because I have had the privilege of speaking now to a number of women who have been diagnosed shortly after I've been able to talk to them shortly after their diagnosis. And I tell them the first thing I say is what my friend Mary said to me. And I think I talked to her that same night. I think I came home, told Jesse, we went and saw his parents, told them. And then I think I called her like right after that. And she said to me, she's like, you're going to think I'm crazy and it's not going to feel like it right now, but you are in the worst part of it right now. It might not get easier for a while, but this is the worst. It's not going to get any worse than this. This is the worst time, because right after you're diagnosed, and there was something strangely comforting in that, knowing that you are already in like the darkest part of it and you're still alive, you're still getting through it, you're still here, you're still breathing, and you're just putting one foot in front of the other. There is something very comforting in that, because it's that time right after diagnosis. You don't have a pathology report yet. You don't know how bad it is. You don't know if it's stage 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. You have no idea if it's spread, if it hasn't, if it's aggressive, if it's not. You just don't know anything. All you know, sometimes you might know, they might tell you from the biopsy if you're triple positive or triple negative or a combination. I didn't. All I knew is that it was invasive ductal carcinoma. That's all my biopsy said. So I really had no information. You don't have a plan. You don't know what you're going to be offered in terms of surgery or chemo or radiation or Herceptin or drug, like other hormone drugs or any combination of those things. You don't know. For me, I didn't know yet what I could do for myself. So it was a very scary time. But that means that everything after that is just a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. So that's the first thing that I would say. The other then would be, we talked about, cancer is a team sport, and you have to be a member of that team. You have, like, one of the most important things I did for myself was become a member of my own healing team, or become a member of my own healthcare team. And that was through, researching and figuring out what I could do myself and taking stuff to my naturopath and being like, do you know anything about this? Like, is this something I could try? Finding other treatments at other clinics that I could travel to. But then also cultivating a relationship with my intuition and trusting it, because I did have to make some pretty difficult treatment decisions, which some people will just say, we'll just do everything. And that's totally cool. Totally fine if that's what you want to do. I didn't feel that way. I only wanted to do what I felt like was absolutely necessary. So I did have to make some pretty difficult treatment decisions regarding what to do and what not to do. So trusting my gut and my intuition was paramount. It was so key. But then, as I said at the beginning, researching and all of that stuff, it relieved my anxiety a lot. So that was very helpful. So become a member of your own healthcare team. Be an active patient. Don't be a passive patient. Be an active patient. Tell your body, like, I am here, I am fighting, I'm doing it. I'm going to just set the intention that you are going to get through it. And then you're not just going to like let it happen, be active, ask questions. I mean, it can take all sorts of forms. It doesn't have to take the form of researching and implementing your own stuff. It can just be like, you know what, I'm going to ask every question in the book. I'm going to make sure that I feel 100% okay with all of the treatments I decide to do or not to do. Like that might be the extent that it takes, and that's totally cool too. And then finally, it's not going to be easy to do at the beginning. It's going to be really hard, but practice gratitude. And like, it really does take practice some days. But just look for the littlest things. Start little. Be like, you know what? I wouldn't have met this person if I hadn't been diagnosed. Or I really like my doctor, and like, I'm really glad that, you know, they're on my team, and I wouldn't know them, and I wouldn't have them if I didn't have cancer. Or, you know, like, this is bringing me and my partner, or me and my mom, or me and my sister closer together. And like, that's really great. And the more you practice it, the more things will just come to you. Right. They'll just pop into your head. You'll be like, oh my God, that tree is gorgeous. And I have actually said that to myself, and it sounds so cliche, like, the sky's so blue today. But like, seriously, I've seriously stopped and said that to myself, because it does. It just changes your whole perspective. And I don't ever want to lose that. I don't want to ever lose that, like, I don't know, childlike wonder that I've gained with the world. So practice gratitude and watch for the gifts and the lessons. And they're going to be little at first. They're going to be hard to find, but just don't give up on that. Just keep practicing gratitude. It'll keep you positive, and that's really important.
Yeah. Before I move on to my next question, there is a really good question. I do want to touch on it. I didn't really think of this, but the question is, what was personally your best takeaway as a cancer survivor?
Oh, there are so many things that cancer has given me. I think I probably have a list now of close to 100 things. I write them down when they occur to me. So there's really just so much. But I think trusting yourself, trusting myself is one of the most important things, because I was a people pleaser, and I've said it before while interviewing other people on this series, but I'm not, I like to say I'm now a recovering people pleaser. And I think before I did not have enough confidence in myself to believe that I could run my own life and that I could make my own decisions. I needed to, it was just really hard for me to make decisions. And I think it came down to not trusting myself and not having confidence in myself. And cancer forced me to do that. Especially because I took an integrative route. I had to sit in my doctor's office and say, I don't want to finish chemo, and I don't want to do radiation. And those were some of the most terrifying days to me, which is hilarious because cancer is terrifying on so many different days. Yeah. But just telling them no I was almost as nervous going to that appointment as I was going to get my results back. Like right at the beginning before I was diagnosed. Like, it was so scary to me to be like, oh my God, these people, like, I want them to like me. I want them to think I'm a good patient. I want them to think I'm responsible, but like, I don't want to do this, and it just doesn't feel right. And something in my gut is screaming at me no, and I have to listen. So cancer forced me. It literally forced me to be like, stand up for yourself, because you never have in your life. And now is your time to do it. Your life might literally be on the line. So I think, trusting yourself, having confidence in yourself, and like loving yourself. It's just completely changed my relationship with me. And that has been really wonderful. And it doesn't have to be cancer. It's just the challenges that we go through. Right. They acquaint us with ourselves, because we have to call on different strengths and different skills that we maybe didn't know that we had. So yeah. And then also, it's just taught me what the meaning of my life is. And I think what the meaning of all life is, which is discover what your unique gifts and talents are, and then share them with the world, because there's only one you. For some reason, you've been handed this challenge, whether that's cancer or something else. So learn what you can from it, develop your skills and your strengths through it, because you're going to need them to get through it. And then you just naturally are more prepared on the other side. And then use them, share them, because someone else is coming up behind you who is not as strong yet and who doesn't know the things yet that you know, and you can really help them. And that, I think, is what life is all about. Like, you just find why you're here, why you have the gifts that you do, and then just share them. And that has been huge for me too.
I completely agree and resonate with that. Someone actually asked me the other day, they were like, oh, like, do you believe that there's like purpose in life or something along the lines of that? And my answer is very similar to what you said, in terms of, like, I think we're all here for a reason, and finding that reason, that journey in itself is really special. And you make a good point in terms of it's not just a cancer diagnosis, and it could be something as little as not getting like a math question right.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah, it could be something little.
as simple as that, right? So I guess that's true in terms of just kind of opening yourself up to the possibilities that life really has to offer. Yeah.
And I think part of that too is people. I have always believed that things happen for a reason, but I didn't really understand what that meant to me until cancer, and it was really just that. Not necessarily that things happen for like some predetermined, fated, reason that's been laid out before you were even born, but just that there are positives in every, almost sometimes there are just senseless, horrible things that happen, but there are positives in most of the things that happen to us in our life. If we choose to look for them, you can find the reason. So I think that, that just ties into all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. We are nearing the end of this, but I do want to just touch on something you said earlier about cancer being a gift. And I've seen that over and over again in your posts and in your blogs and stuff. I just want to know just a little quickly about why you kind of see it that way.
So I talk a lot about, I do, so like I said, throughout the year, I'll write down like the lessons that occur to me, and I'll, and then starting on like my cancerversary every year, I share them sort of like one at a time in the Facebook group that I run. And I just always title those posts "Lessons Cancer Taught Me," number 1, number 2, number 3. And those are, for me, the gifts of cancer. It's the things that, and it's all the positive stuff that I've already talked about too, the self-confidence, the trusting myself, the listening to and trusting my intuition, the just new relationship with myself, the pursuing of my dreams, which I had given up on prior to cancer. And those were just all the gifts of cancer for me, that if on day 1, I just wish I could like go back to that office and sit down next to myself and be like, here are all the crazy, amazing things that are going to happen. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. And yeah, you're going to have to go through a lot of stuff before you get there. But like, you are going to be a completely different person. You're going to literally be the best version of yourself to date. And I would not have gotten to this place without cancer. And I wish I could go back and tell myself that, because it allows you to release the anger, the fear, the bitterness, the resentment, the like, why me? Why now? This isn't fair. And it's not fair. And it does suck. And it's totally fine to feel that fear and that bitterness and that resentment. But if you don't find a way to let go of those emotions when you're ready, then they're just going to build and build and build and eat you alive from the inside out. So you have to find a way to let go of those negative emotions. And for me, that was recognizing the gifts of cancer and looking for, those lessons and those growth, all of that growth and all of those positives. And it was hard to do at first, but the more I did it, the faster they started coming
the acceptance part, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I started to understand so much more about why it happened when it did, and why I believe anyway that it was happening to me. And I needed to change in these ways, not just physically in terms of, my diet and exercise and detoxing and all of that stuff, but I also needed to change my relationship with me. I needed to change how I was, just how I was talking to myself and how I viewed myself. And, and the universe or the powers that be or whoever is out there recognized that I was not going to do it on my own, and that I needed something that I couldn't ignore. And you cannot ignore cancer.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
No. So it actually kind of put me into this strange like relationship with cancer, where it was actually something that was trying to help me. It was like my body going like, there's something really wrong in here. You need to pay attention to this. And then it stopped being something that I was fighting against, and it started being something that, was trying to help me out. Instead of my body betraying me, it was my body being like, we just need help, and this is the only way that we know how to get it. So yeah, there was a lot more ease in that space. And that was the beginning of the gifts of cancer. That was the beginning of it. And then it was a lot easier to find all the positives and all the lessons. And I recognize that that's not everyone's experience, and that's totally fine. There's a lot of people who are going to listen to this and be like, that's insane. There's no way I could ever look at cancer as a gift. There's no way I could ever feel grateful for it, which a part of me does feel, which is crazy to me. Even now.
I think it's perspective. I think it is
really
your perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad always says that, like, whenever I say, oh, I have a cough, he's like, you don't have a cough. Like, all you really have to do is kind of just change the way you think about little things, and you don't know where that's going to take you. And ultimately, like, just having that positive outlook and seeing that glass, as cliche as it may sound, you know, seeing that glass as half full versus half empty, really makes all the worlds of a difference. And you've kind of transformed that into the community and your platform with so I think that's great. I love the happy healing part you put into it. How did that quickly come about, and how did that happen?
I don't really know. I was just on one of the posts. So I'm sure everyone knows by now if you've been listening for a while, but I run a Facebook group and a blog called Orenda Cancer Community on Facebook, and then orendablog.com is the website, or sorry, .ca is the website. I was just, I don't know whether it was in a blog post or it was one of the Facebook posts, but it just kind of came natural. Like I was just, you know, writing and got to the end and how to sign off, and it just like popped into my head and it just came out, and that was it. And I feel like my belief in I call it the universe. Other people might call it God or the angels or powers that be or whatever. But my belief in the universe, in some sort of higher power energy out there, I can't deny it now. I think that was just a little voice from the universe speaking to me and saying like, this will be fun, this will be nice, put that in there. And I think it just brings healing is scary because it takes a lot of change. You have to be willing to change.
We don't like change.
People don't like change, myself included. It's hard. It sucks sometimes. But most of the time it's necessary. And I think that, just putting the little heart there infuses it with it just gives some love to every message. And I like to believe in that, you know, energy of love, and it's just sending out a little love every time I send out a post. But also the happy healing part, I think it just, makes it, hopefully for people, makes it into a positive thing instead of like a scary thing or a hard thing, which it can also be. But hopefully, and primarily for me anyway, it's been a very, very happy experience to heal on just like so many levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of it. So yeah, that's why I continue to put it in there. And I think it was maybe just some little universal voice saying, people need to hear this all the time. You should put that in there.
It's funny whenever we're interviewing like guests who come onto our show, we're like, are we gonna make it to the 40 minutes?
I know, right?
I love how we were able to just connect on something that's completely unknown to me, but also I can kind of relate because I've seen all these people go through it. And I guess our kind of hope and like mission with these series in itself was to kind of just push people to just think a little bit more than they would regularly, or just as long as we're able to take it to the next level and for them to kind of understand like why we're doing this. I hope that we were able to empower people through our discussion today. This was great. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's like I said, I think it's why I'm here, and I think it's why I was one of the reasons I was, given this mountain to climb, is so that I can help other people. So
well, you're definitely at the top of it.
Thank you. The view's good. Come on and join me.
But that's all the time we have for today. For everybody watching, I hope that you enjoyed our special episode today with your two hosts of imPOWERED. We will see you Thursday, I guess, with another episode. So we'll see you then.
Bye.